Well, hello and welcome to Portland International Airport. Today we're going to be taking a flight from Portland to Kona on the big island of Hawaii. So that's KPDX to PHKO. We're flying Alaska Airlines Flight 855 today. They operate the service on a 737-800. This is one of their ETOPS airframes with the special Hawaii livery that they fly on their trans-Pacific flights over to Hawaii. So this is a flight that I flew in real life as a passenger on November 10th, 2016. So I'm recreating that flight, so I've loaded up the weather from November 10th, and I am following the route that my actual aircraft took. So I thought it'd just be fun to kind of fly the same flight, same Alaska flight, same aircraft, same route, all that good stuff under the same conditions. So it's kind of cloudy in Portland today, but not too bad. Of course, it'll be nice and warm and sunny when we get to the island. So it's about a 5.5 to 6 hour flight today. We'll probably, in the video here, stick around to get everything set up and take our departure out of Portland. Check in when we hit our cruising altitude, and then pick back up when we're about ready to descend toward Hawaii, and then we'll go ahead and fly that descent together. So the caterers are loading things up now. We're just about going to have some passengers getting on board, so we should probably jump into the cockpit and start preparing for this flight. See you on the flight deck. All right, well, welcome aboard. So we just arrived at the plane. It's in its turnaround state here. You can clear out the initial warnings. Do a quick preliminary pre-flight here. Get the IRSs aligning so we're not waiting for those when we're ready to leave. The yaw damper can go on at that point. Fuel, we'll go ahead and leave the center fuel pumps on since we will be firing for the APU in a minute here. That's fine. That's good. Arm the emergency lights as we're about to have passengers board. Window heat can go on at this point. Well, looks like I think we actually have some outside air on, so we'll turn the recirc fans off. And our flight level will be 340, although we'll have a step climb recommended at some point in our flight here, so if we get clearance from ATC, we'll eventually go up to 36,000. Destination field, Kona, is actually close enough to 50 feet, so that's perfect. And everything else looks good. Since the passengers are here, let's go ahead and just get the APU fired up so that we're ready for it, ready to push back whenever all the cargo is loaded. And let's start programming the FMC. So we're starting off at KPDX. Grab our initial position from the GPSs. They look close enough. We'll pull from the left here. Alright, so now the plane knows where we are. So our route today is I already typed it in there for us, KPDX to Papa Hotel Kilo Oscar. And we have a company route, KPDX PHKO 01, with all of our waypoints already in the database, which is convenient. And we're flying Alaska 855 today. So if we look at our route, we're going, we'll expect probably the Portland 1, which is just a vector's departure out of Portland, to ONP, Himlo, 40 north, 300 west, Adtil, Billow, Beckme, Bitta, and up. And then the Vecchi 8 arrival into Kona. That all matches my flight plan, so that looks good. Let's go ahead and plug in our Portland departure really quick here. We'll take runway 28 left on the Portland 1 departure. And then we'll wait until we're in the air to start programming in the arrival into Kona. just based on the weather, active runway, and whatever ATC is assigning. About 5 hours from now is probably when we'll be programming that. So you can activate that and move on to Perfinet. So we are a heavy aircraft today. 0 fuel weight, 126,400 pounds. With fuel, that gives us a ramp weight here of 172,400 pounds. We're going to start out at flight level 340. Fly this probably cost index of 30. Looking at my flight plan here, so we're expecting to burn of our 45.8 fuel 32.1 thousand pounds. There's an extra 10%. Alternate to get to Maui will take about 2,500. And then just we have some extra required fuel for ETOPS operations, some extra for some safety, taxi fuel. So our minimum takeoff fuel is going to be 43,143. So we'll just check that we still have that much before we take off. But otherwise, this is a almost full fuel load, something like 97% full fuel load for a 737-800. So as far as reserves go, we're supposed to get there again on 32,141 pounds. If we subtract that away, subtract away some of our taxi, but leave enough to get our holding and off to Maui should we need to divert. Let's say we want the FMC to bug us if it is going to dip below 10,000 pounds of fuel. That should be pretty conservative, but also give us enough to not get nagged unnecessarily. Looking at the weather briefing, we're expecting average winds of 259 at 29. Plug that in there. And we're a couple degrees above standard temperature today. It looks like temp at top of climb is 50 degrees, minus 50 degrees. So 2 degrees C above standard. So I'll get that in there. That's our active performance data now. Our optimal takeoff, according to TopCat, is a flaps 1, takeoff 1, with no assumed temperature. So we'll just plug in takeoff 1 there, and then it looks like it will keep us on a regular climb thrust. Again, we're very heavy. This is about as full and heavy as you can make a 737, so we'll just use the power that we have. Okay, flaps 1 takeoff. Center of gravity is 20%. And it looks like we have our V-speed calculations here, so we'll just go ahead and pull those over. Alright, I think everybody's on board. We'll go ahead and close the cargo doors and close the entry door. So the aircraft's all closed up. We'll have them pull the ground air. At this point, our APU is on, so we can transfer to APU power. We can also take our APU air to turn the packs on. Confirm all the door lights are closed. And things are looking pretty good for an on-time departure here. Air conditioner warning is due to APU bleeds on. We're on dual bleed now, so that's expected. The MCP, we now have our V-speed, so we can plug in 164 to V2. Runway heading for 28 left is 283 degrees. Let's say our initial clearance is to 6,000. So that all looks good. We can arm the auto throttle. That completes our MCP setup. verify our hydraulic levels. Hydraulic quantity looks good. And now that we are on internal APU power, let's go ahead and pull the ground power wheel chocks off. I think they're pulling the jetway. Yep, there it goes. So with that, we can jump out of the sim world and back into the real world and get our first officer on the legs page. All right, very good. Let's check some Portland weather. Let me on 12835. Three 009er. Okay. Been assigned an AC squawk code of 3544, so we'll get that in there. Set our stab trim to 6.31 for takeoff, so good nose up attitude there for our heavy plane. Let's see, that's about 5.5. That's approximately correct there. All right, let's take one last look overhead, make sure we're ready for pushback and start. We'll go ahead and get our fuel pumps on at this point. Get the passengers seated and belted. Hydraulic pumps, electric hydraulics can go on at this point. And altitude panel is set. All right, so let's call the ground, get a pushback. Did our parking brake pop off? It did. And get a pushback, nose right. Run through the before start checklist. Well, actually, we'll wait until we're hooked up and ready to go.
Oh, Captain, we are ready for pushback.
Turn our beacon on at this point so they know we're about to start.
Locking gear. Departure check completed. Live has been inserted. Release parking brakes.
Okay, parking brake released.
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start that wheel.
Alright, so before start checklist. Flight deck door closed and locked. Fuel, we have 45,800 pounds on board, and the pumps are on. Passenger signs, seatbelt sign is on. Windows locked. MCP is set V2 164, heading 283, altitude 6,000. Takeoff speeds V1 158, VR 160, and V2 164. CDU pre-flight is complete, and the beacon is on. For that, we can start the engines by turning the packs off and start engine number 2. So looking for in 2 rotation, looking for in 1 rotation. Oil pressure's alive. And about 25% into our max motoring, we can introduce the fuel.
Set parking brakes.
Alright, so there's engine 2. Start 1.
Unlocking gear.
2 rotation, we have in 1 rotation.
Tow truck disconnected.
Oil pressure's alive.
Bypass speed removed.
And approaching 25%. Introduce fuel.
Left is clear. Right is clear.
Alright, tug will clear away. Looks like we have a good start on the engines. Let's go auto brakes for rejected takeoff. Power on the engine generators. Pitot heat on. Heat bleed off at this point. Isolation valve auto, and the packs can go back on. Engine start switches continuous ignition for takeoff. Turn the APU off at this point. We'll set flaps to 1 for takeoff. Flight control check. Full forward. Left. Flight controls are free and clear. Transponder TARA. Recall clear, no warnings. Set up my ND the way I like it. Let's see, and we are after the airport, going out that way, okay. So before taxi checklist, the generators are on. Probe heat is on. Anti-ice not necessary. Isolation valve auto. Engine start switches continuous. Recall's been checked. Auto brake is RTO. Flight controls checked. Engine start levelers are at the idle detent. And ground equipment is clear. So our taxi today, we should be able to take a right ahead of us here, and then we'll go Probably right down. Let's see. Wait, which way are we facing? Oh, so yeah, we need to take a. We need to go ahead and go left. We'll loop around left, eventually on Tango, joining Bravo. Bravo will take us to the runway. So let's see if this actually works. Taxi light on. And let's go for a drive. Okay, brakes off. Keep looping around to the left here. To join Tango. Then we'll follow Tango straight down until it veers off and takes us onto Bravo to the runway. Alright, we are cleared onto the runway. Let's get the strobes on. So before takeoff checklist, flaps 1, green light, and stabilizer trim is 6.3 units. Alright, we are ready for takeoff. Start the clock. The engine stabilize. Toga. Power set. $80 knots.
V1.
V1.
Rotate.
Rotate.
V2.
Positive rate. Gear up. Alright, we're going to VNav. And autopilot engage. HTC is giving us a heading of 230. Continue our climb to 10,000. Flaps up. All right. Turn to 207. And we're cleared direct ONP. Go to LNAV. And light day for traffic. We're cleared all the way up to our cruising altitude of flight level 340. So cleared to the flight level. And go standard altimeter pressure. Landing gear to off. Auto brakes off. Clear day, so ignition can go off. Looks like we'll be above the cloud layer here as we fly out to the coast. Let's see, do I have a... Yep, weather radar. And we can bring up the weather here. Got terrain over on the first officer side. Okay, passing 10,000 feet. The plane will accelerate us to our climb speed. So let's run our after takeoff checklist. Engine bleeds are on. Packs are auto. Landing gear is up and off. The flaps are up and no lights. Pressurization looks reasonable, that's good. Pull our lights off now. And such that we are basically ready for our cruise. Alright, so we just flew over Newport. We're making a slight turn out over the ocean. Looks like the clouds end right about where land ends, and then it looks clear out over the ocean. So we're about 6 minutes away, 40 nautical miles from the top of our climb. Now we're at flight level 330, so 1,000 to go to our assigned cruise altitude of flight level 340. And as we approach and stabilize on flight level 340, we should see the aircraft change from climb mode with climb thrust for N1 indicated to cruise mode. So we'll just watch for that and make sure we're happy with what the thrust starts doing once we get there. There we go. So the aircraft switched to cruise. captured flight level 340. You can see the thrust coming back from 100% N1. It will now use whatever thrust is necessary to maintain speed of 0.784 Mach. Which it's thinking is 89.9. Also down here we can see its current estimate of fuel at our destination is 12,000 pounds. That's good. We said we wanted to arrive with 10,000 pounds left in the tanks, so allowing for a little bit of maneuvering on the arrival. That's looking just fine. So right now our optimum flight level is 348. Of course, we have to fly even thousands going in this direction. So flight level 340 will work for now. As we fly along, we'll see the optimal flight level increase, as well as the max flight level. So when we're starting to get in the neighborhood of flight level 360 being optimal, we'll request that climb from ATC, and hopefully we can get it. And we'll actually be able to compute how much of a fuel savings the plane thinks that will give us. So we'll look at that in a little bit later in the flight here. As we're cruising, we can check the overhead panel. Pressurization's good. Looks like cabin altitude is about 7,000 feet. And it's been a little bumpy on the way up, so we've left the seatbelt sign on. I'll take that off now. Lights are all off, ignition's off. Everything looks good for our cruise configuration. Out of the window here, you see the clouds are starting to break up. We're over the ocean now. And it looks like once we get farther offshore, the clouds should go away entirely, and we'll just get to stare down out at the big blue ocean. Alright, so everything's looking good. Looks like we go out to this Himlo point, take a turn, and then it's a long straight shot down toward the Hawaiian Islands. Oh, welcome back. So it's a little bit earlier than our flight plan had planned the step climb, but we hit some pretty bumpy air here, so we'll get the passengers back in their seats. And looking down here at the CDU, the cruise, optimum right now is flight level 351, but we can climb all the way to 360. So I've gone ahead and requested from ATC our climb up to 360, see if we maybe a bit smoother air up there. And you can see when you put that into the computer here, it actually tells us if we do that, here we go, we should get a 6.3% or so fuel savings. So that's definitely worth doing. And the reason we didn't go straight to 360 at takeoff was because of our weight. We were too heavy to get all the way up to 360. Now, though, the aircraft says it can climb all the way up to 365, so we can definitely hit 360, which will save us fuel and hopefully get us above this bumpy air. So a couple things we need to do for our step climb. We need to tell the pressurization system that we're going to cruise at 360. That will keep all the pressurization correct. And we have received our clearance from ATC to climb to flight level 360. So we'll dial 360 into the MCP, and this will allow the plane to actually climb. If we leave that at 340, of course, it would not go beyond the altitude that we've selected there. And that hasn't initiated the climb yet because we're just in our LNAV mode, or our VNAV mode, which will follow the flight plan profile. So to actually do our climb, we go back to our, let me get to the right page here, cruise altitude of 360. And that, when we execute, puts us back in climb mode. You can see the throttles are going to come back up to the climb thrust, and the aircraft has begun its climb to 360. Shouldn't take too long to get there. Alright, so 1,000 to go to 360. A good headwind, flying into about 54 knot headwind, so it's the difference between our airspeed and our ground speed. Still pretty bumpy up here. Just hopefully forging on, flying forward for a little ways will get us past this turbulence. Alright, so we've captured flight level 360, back to cruise mode, back in cruise. We're done computing the difference for our step climb, so I can clear that out of this page, and then we're just looking at our actual performance here. So that just gives us a little bit of fuel savings. Now that we're light enough to climb higher on these long flights, it's nice to keep climbing up to your optimal altitude. If we take a look above, we can see that since we told it that we were going to go up to that higher level, pressurization's still fine, and we're below the warning pressure differential. So everything looks good. So we are a mere 52 minutes into our flight. Looking at our progress, we should get there at 23:15. So what's that? Another 5 hours to go. So this will indeed be a 6-hour flight, which, sure enough, is how long it took the day that I flew it for real. So it seems the Active Sky Next, or I guess Active Sky 2016 now that I'm using, the AS16 historical weather is at least accurate enough where this headwind is probably about what it was when I flew this back in November, which stretched this out to be nearly a 6-hour long flight. So really, the next thing we're going to look for is when we exhaust the center tank's fuel. So we have about 20,000 pounds left of fuel in the center tanks. At some point, we will use all of that up, and then we'll need to turn the center pumps off, and then we'll start draining the wing tanks. But that will be a few more hours before we need to worry about that. So that will stay here in the cruise, and I'll see you in a few hours. All right, welcome back. We're about, well, exactly 4 hours, 41 minutes into the flight. We've just exhausted that center tank fuel, so we have the fuel warning that came on. And that's because we're now getting low pressure indicators on the center fuel pumps. So we just turn those off. Warning is cleared. So now we are draining from our wing tanks. 17.2 thousand pounds fuel remaining, so still plenty of gas. And in fact, it looks like if we go on progress, fuel remaining at Kona, still estimating 12,400 pounds, so well within our very conservative estimates to begin with. So while we're here at this point, probably makes sense to start planning the arrival. Let's say we got some either weather or clearance from company data link. I'm actually going to pull that up over on my computer. One sec. All right, so Kona, current temperature 29°C, 84 degrees Fahrenheit, 2.19, 10 miles plus visibility. As we can see here, at least at this point, really no clouds to be seen. Nice and clear as far as the eye can see here. Surface winds 270 at 8. We're going to land on runway 17 using the ILS 17 approach. So let's start getting that into our system here. So currently we look at the legs. We finish off at up UPP. Vecchi 8 arrival, so for our arrival, we will plug in ILS 17, Vecchi 8, and we know we are going on up, so I'll put that in both the arrival and approach. See what that looks like in our wrap. So we are flying to up, then up takes us to Vecchi. Back to up. Let me just pull up the chart so I can confirm what we should actually be doing here. Yeah, so Vecchi arrival, we come from Upolu Point, which is uniform Papa Papa, up. That should bring us into Guyane, Geyен, which I'm not seeing here. I'll see that on the legs page. Here we go. Up. Okay, so up Guyane. And then Beka, and then Vecchi. So I think what we need to do back here on route is just pull this up to here to get us on the approach. Yeah, that's fine. So now if you look at legs, we're on up. Gayan, Beka, Veki, and on in. Just confirm a couple of the altitude restrictions. So 5,600 or above at Gayan looks good. 4,500 or above at Beka. 3,000 or above at Veki. And on the ILS, that's actually our intercept at 3,000. So I'm going to just turn that into a hard 3,000. Just to make sure that we're actually there at that time. So that's good. Execute that. Top of descent now 320 nautical miles away. And if we look out, yep, so we'll turn in Beta and then we'll start descending at some point in there. Very good. Well, things are looking good. We did eventually clear that turbulence, so the seatbelt signs are no longer on, so passengers are still back to being up and about. About 4 hours 45 into the flight, and let's see, what was the top of descent estimated at 22:56. It's about 40 minutes, a little over 40 minutes. But we're all programmed for the arrival now, so that's good. We won't need to think about that when we're trying to start getting the plane down for the approach. All right, so for one last time, I'll leave you as we cruise along here, and I'll see you again as we are preparing to descend. Oh, welcome back. We can see land. It's no longer just ocean. Hop back into the flight deck here. 5 hours, 24 minutes into the flight. You can see we're approaching the top of descent here. Otherwise, no real updates since we last spoke. MMC has seen top of descent at 22:55. We have a couple minutes here. Let's go ahead and I'll pop down to the CDU here. Let's look at our approach ref. We will do a flaps 40. Let's see, I click that. How do I make it big? There we go. Flaps 40 landing, which gives us a VREF of 139. So that's all set. On our chart for this arrival, minimum's 250. So we'll set Barrow 250. Get our nav radio set. Just so that that is ready to go. It should be 109.7. 109.7, and set that over on the first officer. 109.7. And that's going to be radial, it looks like 174 for our landing. 174. And 174. Use auto brake 2. Yeah, it's a decent length runway. So let's run through our descent checklist really quickly. Descent checklist. Pressurization. Landing altitude is set to 50 feet. Recall is clear. Auto brake 2. Landing data is set. VREF 139. And minimum's 250. And our approach briefing is complete. So let's say ATC just called us. Cleared us down to 20. And we can actually go ahead and start the descent now. I'll just give us a little bit shallower path to start with here for the passengers. Speaking of passengers, we would have told them we were about to start the descent. Go ahead and get their seatbelts on now for the rest of the flight. So I believe this is Maui here. We'll go between Maui and Hawaii. Go through and then turn. So we can land over on the other side of the island here, around the bend. Throttle's coming back now to support our descent. See if we can pick up the Kona weather. That's going to be on 127 400. Not quite yet, but that'll come on when we're in range. And so far, very nicely spot on profile. Really has to be expected. It only starts becoming challenging when we want to slow down and the airplane wants to speed up. See the other islands out there along here. I see now that the aircraft has accepted an increase in airspeed to stay on VNAV path. That's what it will do in VNAV path mode. If it gets too fast, it'll try and hold a speed and then just give up on the VNAV path. But above 10,000 feet, that's fine. Again, we'll just need to decelerate. You can see the decel point here so that we can get down to 250 knots below 10,000 feet. But we have a ways to go for that, so we will just let this thing fly down as fast as it wants to. Even here up at flight level about 220, winds are pretty tame, only 10 knots crosswind at the moment. Here comes the weather. All right, warm day. Some light winds. Altimeter 299 or 8. We're cleared down now to 5,600. At which point we can dial in 299 or 8 on the altimeter. And cross-check. Everybody's happy. Since we're cleared to an altitude, we can go out of standard. Cabin's descending. Everything looks good. Gotten reasonably fast above profile speed to stay on path, but we will just wait and see how much help the aircraft needs at the deceleration point to get down to 250. Don't see any speed restrictions on the star, so as long as ATC is happy, we're happy. Yep, drag required, so it is asking for some help now. Put out a little bit of speed brake. Alright, speed starting to trend down with the speed brake out. Hit the target speed, slowly bring it back in so that we don't start getting thrust. Now it'll want to slow us down to 240, which will again need some help. Alright. So we're below 250 for 10,000, so no speed limit busting here. Ease up on the brakes a bit. See if we maintain 240. Speed brake down. Still needs a little bit of help. Here's our turn toward Gan and then Beka. Turn some lights on now. Put flaps 1 out. Start help with the speed. Bring the speed brakes back in. Go to flaps 5. Looking for more drag, although it really wants to slow us down pretty aggressively here. Probably in response to the flaps being down, but that's okay. So just get us back down to 5,600. Clear to continue on down via the star to 3,000. Now we confirm we do have our altitude limits set, so it won't take us below 4,500 until after Beta. Speed brakes in now. See the runway out here. So we'll have that left turn to intercept the localizer. So approach checklist, altimeter set 29 or 9 or 8. Okay, flaps 15, and gear down. We've been cleared for the ILS 17 approach. Localizer established. Glide slope armed. Engine ignition's continuous. flaps 30. Speed brake armed. We're still 11 miles out, so we are slow and configured, probably a little early here, but not a lot of traffic, so hopefully nobody minds. I will wait for flaps 40 until we're a little closer. Glide slope established so we can put in the missed approach altitude, which is 5,000 feet. Airfields 139. So our approach speed will be 144. Go down to that now. And go flaps 40. Landing checklist. Engine start switches continuous. Yep. Speed brake is armed. Landing gears down, 3 greens. Flaps 40, green light. We are ready to land. And we're cleared to land. Pop the taxi light on. 1,000 above. Autopilot disengage. And I have control of the speed. Slight crosswind blowing us to the left.
Minimums.
Landing. Floated that one quite a bit. Long runway, we're landing. And there's reversers. I don't know why those weren't coming on earlier. Okay, manual braking. Stay on the right here. Reversers stowed. Pretty ugly landing, but I'm flying, so that's pretty much what you expect, right? Alright, and we are nice and slow off the end here. Here's the runway, we'll just stop here for a second. So flaps all the way up. Stow the speed brake. Landing lights come off. Get the APU started. Propede comes off. The strobes come off. And auto brake off. Warning is anti-ice because we turned the propede off. Alright, we are going to gate 6. It doesn't know that Alaska has equipment here, but that's fine. So, stopping the clock there, we were just short of 6 hours in the air. I'm trying to stay on the taxiway here, that'd be a good idea. Delta, we need to go down to hotel. Okay, so I believe our gate will be just kind of on the inside of the near protrusion, somewhere around here. So maybe around here. 8. That's 7. Oh, need to go down a little bit farther. So this must be 6. And that's 5. 6. Ah, 6 is on the inside. Okay, I see. Go on 5, and then it'll be a turn down at the end here to 6. Tight turns, so we want to go pretty slowly. Straight in. There we go. Okay, parking brake set. Go over to APU power, APU bleed on. Open the valve, and then we can cut our engines. Seat belts off. And in one below 10%, we can turn our beacon off. Most of the fuel pumps can go off. Electric hydraulic pumps off. All the bleeds open. Flight directors can come off. And let's get some wheel chocks on, ground power available, connect the ground air. Open the door and let some passengers out. Ground power on. We can take the APU off and fans off. Forward cargo door. And they'll probably want aft cargo door as well. So there we are. Welcome to Kona. Sunny day in Hawaii. So this is the FS Dream Team's scenery for Kona, part of their Hawaii Airports Volume 2 pack. There go the passenger bags. And it looks like a nice airport on a nice day on the ocean. Well, aside from that disaster of landing, it was a good flight. Airplane performed well. Got here with plenty of fuel as planned, so everything worked as it should. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.